Welcome, dear friends. Here we are with another study of the Spiritist magazine. Every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are here together studying and analyzing one of the articles from one of the issues of the Spiritist magazine. And as always, you can find all of the content for the Spiritist magazine at spiritistmagazine.org. You'll find the link to the website, the link to the Facebook page, the link to download the free app of the Spiritist magazine, a link to donate, a contact form, a link to the PDF version of the magazine, or even if you'd like a way to order the physical copy of the magazine. What a blessing to be here with you today because this week we have another article. And the article we are working on today is from the Spirit Dr. Bezerra de Menezes. This is the beautiful article written by him, translated by the team, and brought to us today for our reflection. And it goes deep down the core of what we are here doing, which is Spiritist Centers in our club. How is your relationship with your Spiritist Center? And if you don't have one, we consider that God has put us in a certain place. Perhaps our mission is to start a Spiritist group that one day will become a physical Spiritist Center. Remember, all the plans for any institutions on the world that are of goodness come from Christ, from many decades and years of planning in the spiritual realm, and then it comes into fruition in the physical realm. However, we always want to read these teachings in a perspective of how can this message help me be a better incarnated spirit, incarnate being on this Mother Earth. And today it is really questioning our relationship with our Spiritist centers. What a blessing to know that we have the means of working on that relationship and inquiring of ourselves on how we can do better, right? So if you have the copy of the magazine, if you have the PDF version, if you have the app, you can follow me. This is issue 66. This is the newest issue of the magazine, and this is what Dr. Bezerra de Menezes looks like on his pictures. And this is the cover of the magazine. On the left side, you will see that I am able to, on this PDF reader, browse through the thumbnails of the different articles. Last week, we read this beautiful message from May called Touch of Light, inviting us to be that light in people's lives each and every day. And today we're going to study with Dr. Bezerra de Menezes through the medium Yvonne Pereira. Shall we? Here we are, and you're going to see that I'm moving around the PDF version. If you're not watching this, you're listening to this, I will be reading and discussing this article titled Spiritist Centers are Not a Club by the Spirit Bezerra de Menezes. Shall we? He says there are essential elements, even indispensable to a certain series of works, coordinated by the workers of immortality in the service of the third revelation, which is Spiritism. Did you know that every time we are working to disseminate Spiritism, our work is coordinated by the workers of immortality, meaning the spirits of light who guide the works of the good on the earth? And there are essential elements that are indispensable for the work we do. So let's learn what these essential elements are. The spiritual vibrations, we get the text selection tool. The spiritual vibrations spread out in the environment of a Spiritist center through the care of its invisible guardians. So when we come into the Spiritist center, we should feel that the spiritual environment has changed. Even if you're not a medium or a sensitive medium, because you are a medium, all of us are mediums, but some of us are more extensively interacting with the spiritual realm than others. we'll feel the spiritual vibrations even before we see and hear any spirits around us. So they come in, and through the care of these invisible guardians, they come way before we do. They spread and cleanse and harmonize the environment that we are entering, the Spiritist Center, which begs the question, so how do we enter the Spiritist Center? It starts the night before in preparation, the week before. What are we watching? What are we doing? What are we saying? How are we behaving? The morning off, praying for God to guide us there, praying for those on our drive to the Spiritist Center. Thank God, many of us drive to the Spiritist Centers. We don't have to walk as Jesus and Paul did, right? So we have to be mindful that the spiritual fluids are in there. We want to add, even if we need to take a little bit, we always want to add. And this is the spirit of service within the law of work, right? It's service. When I'm going to the spiritual center, I know the spiritual vibrations are spread out. And he says these useful fluids necessary for the varied and delicate works that must be carried out. So the spiritual fluid is spread and it will be used in the work of the spirits, both with the incarnate and discarnate beings. And what are these works? These varied, mean many types, and delicate works, right? They're working with our perispirit and our spiritual body and our spirit, which are made of different elements than our physical body. From the healing of the sick to the conversation of suffering discarnate entities, and even the talks inspired by the spiritual instructors. So, friends, no work goes on in a serious spiritist center that does not have the inspiration and guidance of the spiritual workers, in this case, the instructor. So let's break it down. The healing of the sick passes, healing therapies, therapeutic passes, visualizations, that's healing, not cured necessarily, but healing. To the conversation of suffering discarnate entities, that could be a disobsession meeting, a mediumistic meeting. It could be a fraternal counseling where we're talking to an incarnate person, or a fraternal counselor is incarnate, and perhaps we're talking to that person, but also to the entities that are around that person and can be helped based on our in our works and our words. Even the talks. So when we go to Spiritist Center, we should really pay attention to what is said, because if the person is serious, such as the Spiritist Center that I am at, when we're talking, that you may be a member of, when the speakers in there, even if they're not aware, the spiritual instructors are reminding them of things to say, how not to say, right? There's a lot to be told about preparation. So when we prepare, when we read, the spirit mentors, the spiritual instructors can grab from our memory examples and teachings of Kardec, the spirits, Emmanuel, and Louise, that we can bring to the audiences as examples. So all of these are guided by these useful spiritual vibrations and fluids that are spread around the Spiritist Center. Now, this is what happens. So he's talking about how we can maintain and what to do with these vibrations. He says, these vibrations, specialized fluids, very subtle and sensitive, must remain immaculate, bearing intact the virtues that are natural and indispensable to the development of work. So when we come in, we want to keep those fluids intact and immaculate, just as the workers are preparing them for use. So we want to be easy on those workers and not add more troubles to their workload, right? To things to do. So if we enter Spiritist Center without preparation, suffering, all of us may have experienced this in our lifetimes, We are adding spiritual fluids of our own. We're disturbing that might not be as positive, and we're disturbing the ones that are being dispensed. And the spirit workers will have to work more to reharmonize the spiritual fluids. So we want to think about, how do I come into the Spiritist Center? Not just because sometimes we think about what we say, but a lot is going on in our minds that we may be able to zip it, but we're still thinking, why are they talking about? Why am I here? And it's hot and it's cold. I don't have this. So we always need to be mindful of those. Why do we need to keep those immaculate, intact vibrations that are subtle and sensitive? He says, because in this way, if not, they will be mixed with the impurities that are harmful to the same works by nullifying their profound positive possibilities. So this is what we have, this work. So if we enter a center and we are disturbed, we're thinking about what to do next, what we did yesterday, we watched so not good content the night before in the morning, all of us are attached to these devices, constantly being fed stuff that is not helpful to our spiritual development on this planet, and then we are going to nullify the work that was done by the spirit mentors. Hence, why enlightened spirituality recommends to adherents of the great doctrine, that's you and I, maximum respect in the meetings, the Spiritist meetings, where frivolity and recklessness, backbiting and intrigue, commercialism and worldliness, noise and lascivious attitudes should never penetrate. So let's break it down. Since these are inferior manifestations of human character. So what should we not do in the Spiritist Center to keep the spiritual fluids intact and immaculate, as subtle and sensitive as they are? He says, maximum respect. Do I respect my Spiritist Center? Do I enter the Spiritist Center without frivolity, recklessness, backbiting, and intrigue? Frivolity. I go to the Spiritist Center and I'm worried about people's haircuts, makeup, shoes they're wearing, what is the newest fashion, what did they watch at the soccer game last night. Those are frivolities. Those are not things that are important. It's important to live in society and to have things, but noticing who gained weight, who didn't gain weight, who is blonde, that is frivolity. Recklessness, that's when we enter and we don't think about what we say, who we say with. We use the resources for ourselves instead of the group. Backbiting, I'm nice to you, and then behind your back, I'm saying bad things about you. That's backstabbing, right? And intrigue, I'm bringing this vibratory aura. What I say, oh, did you see what they said? They said about you. We create problems where they are not, talking about things that are not of our own importance. Just 1 second, friends. Okay, it's good still. These are commercialism and worldliness, noise and less serious attitude. What is commercialism? That's when I go to the center because I want to increase my business. I want people to know I have a business doing X, Y, and Z, and I want referrals, or I'm curious about what other people do. Not that we won't eventually become friends and understand each other and help each other, but we need to ask ourselves, what is my intention? What is my central desire? Do I want to worldliness? I go to the center because I want to find a marriage partner, or I want to find someone who can help me with something. Noise. We should enter the Spiritist Center with an attitude of silence. There should be music playing. That's what we do here. There's music playing, soft instrumental music, classical music playing. Less serious attitude. I only go to the center because I don't have anything better to do. I only go when I feel like it, when the weather is not nice and I don't have anything better to do, right? We need to be serious when we go to the center due to the sacredness of the space. Since these are inferior manifestations of our human character, and in consequence, whose magnetism to such assemblies and therefore for the association that such things allow, will attract group of hostile and evil entities from the invisible realm, which will come to influence subsequent works to the point that they may adulterate them or make them impossible, since such an environment will be incompatible with enlightened and beneficial spirituality. So when we come with this attitude, we nullify the work of the good, of putting, creating this environment that is full of beautiful, sacred, subtle, and delicate spiritual fluids that can be used to the work, to attracting spirits that are not of higher elevation. Because if we bring in those material interest, it makes it much harder for us to connect, to be compatible with the enlightened spirits. So we don't want to bring and attract these hostile and evil entities from the invisible. That's not our intention. So I'm not saying anybody's doing that on purpose. We're saying that our actions may be attracting those entities. So the question remains, how do I bring myself to the Spiritist Center? Why am I going to the Spiritist Center? When I'm there, how can I add to the Spiritist Center? Am I free of judgment? Am I free of commercialism? Am I free of worldliness and intrigue and noise and frivolity, backstabbing, intrigue? We hope so. It takes time, it takes discipline. The Spiritist Center is a school and a hospital. And then we have to remember and remind ourselves that in the Medium's book, Kardec has the antidote, the conditions for a Spiritist Center to thrive, a Spiritist society or meeting to thrive, which is this commonality and harmony of interest between the participants, among other things. So we need to ask ourselves why. How can I be better? How can I improve? How can I add, right? So it's not going to just enjoy ourselves. There are other places on the earth we can do that. A Spiritist Center where the vibrations of its incarnate and discarnate attendees radiate respect, fervent faith, high aspiration, where the spoken word never moves towards futility and depreciation, where instead of amused laughter, prayer is practiced, instead of noise of undue acclamations and praise, telepathic forces are emitted in search of happy inspirations. And even where, instead of ceremonies of word gatherings, the participant considers mental communion with their beloved deceased or their spiritual guides. So that's what we want to do. Let's go back. We want respect, fervent faith, and high aspirations. We want to use our spoken word away from futility and depreciation or amused laughter. We want prayer to be practiced. We want telepathic forces to be emitted, looking for those happy fluids and inspirations. Instead of ceremonies and worldly gatherings, we are here to do this mental communion with our spiritual guides, those who we love, who are now in the spiritual realm, as he's referring to as deceased, right? So next time you go to your Spiritist Center, think about someone you love. Send good vibrations to them. Thank your mentor for guiding you to be there and helping you choose to be at your Spiritist Center in this world where it's so easy to find so many excuses not to go. There's so many other things that people are choosing instead of the Spiritist Center. Such a center, a faithful observer of the directives initially recommended by the organizers of the Spiritist philosophy, will be the holder of the confidence of enlightened spirituality. So, what are the directives initially recommended by the organizers of Spiritism? Those are the chapters 29 and 30 of the Medium's book, written by Kardec on the guidelines for his Spiritist Society of Paris. And of course, we're guided by Christ's um, teachings. So we go back to the gospel and understand the teachings of Christ, because where two are gathered in my name, there I'll be. So the good spirits are just waiting for us to follow these directives, which is the harmony, the discipline, the ability to go and serve and give, give, not take, give, not take. So the center who will faithfully observe the directives will be the holder of the confidence of enlightened spirituality. So the enlightened spirits will see our commitment, and that will elevate into the modeling organizations of above and carry them out within their precincts, sublime undertakings, which will honor their leaders on both planes of life. So we have this opportunity blessed on the earth. How many Spiritist centers do you know exist in the US and abroad, especially the ones who are in the English language? So when we go to those institutions, we want to bring this attitude of respect, ardent faith, and this ability to commune with the higher realms. Only these, therefore, will be registered in the beyond the grave as charitable houses or temples of love and fraternity, authorized for sensitive spiritualist experiences. So those are the spiritist centers who will really matter. Because the others, that is, those centers that deviate to extravagant or inappropriate norms of practice, in the beyond will be considered mere clubs where apprentices of spiritism gather in their leisurely hours. So we want to keep good norms and practices and not have extravagant practices. Simplicity, friends. Our master, Jesus, was simple. He was humble. He was born a Jewish man of a humble beginnings. He lived very simply. We don't need much. We need to be simple and humble and go back to the basis of knowing these directives and norms, modeling the way the Christ and the apostles behaved in order to spread more effectively the good news that he brought us. So we don't want to be a club. We want to be a institution of higher spirituality, where we bring ourselves to add, to be easy on the spiritual workers, to be inspired, to be healed, to learn. This is a school to study. It's a hospital, and it's also a family. We want to get to know each other. We want to get to help one another in this mission on this earth. So blessed it is to have a headquarters or a place where you rent, or even if you're just starting with the gospel at home in your home. We want to be mindful of building the foundation for to be a temple, to be this charitable house of love and fraternity. This is from the book Dramas da Obsessão by Bezerra de Menezes through the medium Yvonne Pereira. Dear friends, I hope this inspired you to do the good, to feel the good, to be inspired by the good next time you go to your Spiritist center, your Spiritist group. And God willing, we'll be back with you next week with another study of the Spiritist magazine. Until then, stay well, stay safe, take care of yourself and someone else, and I hope to see you soon.